Hi, today we're going to be learning about Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access is part of Microsoft Office and can be found as part of the Office suite on the PC. Unfortunately, this application is not written for Mac, so I'm using my PC today. Uh, Also, it's not part of the online version of Microsoft Office, so you're going to need to get the desktop version on a PC. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to click the Start button. We can find Access here in the Microsoft Office group or alphabetically in the list of applications. Now, this application should look somewhat familiar to you, this initial project gallery screen. We should be able to see recent documents and templates. Let's go ahead and click on the blank desktop database to get started. And it's going to ask us to save our database before we even begin. Give it a location, give it a file name. Might be helpful to know what it is that we're doing before we get too far in our project, just so that we have something to work with. I'm going to be creating a database of the Newbery Award-winning books. I enjoy those books a lot, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's give it a file name that works with that. So I'm going to call this, how about Newbery Award books. And keep the .accdb in the file name because that extension helps the computer know how to treat the file. Notice where it's saving or click on the Browse button to save it to a new folder. And then when you're ready, click Create. Okay, so we are now looking at our first table in Microsoft Access. We're going to be using a number of Access objects. Tables are one of them. Let's maximize the screen a little bit more here. And now, before we begin, we're going to need to define our fields or categories of information that apply to every record in our database. Now, we're going to be doing books here, so we probably want to have fields like author and book title. And because this is a list of books that won a particular award, let's also include the year it won the award. Now, before we even start, notice that the computer has put its own field or category of information called ID. And that's an important field for the internal logic of Microsoft Access. Please do not change it. You will notice that as you add records, the computer will number these for you. Do not change the numbering. If a field if you ever delete a record, that number does not need to be restored or redeemed. Don't worry about the ID field at all. Just let that be. So let's create our own. So we're going to start here. We're going to click to add. Yes, I had done something here and the computer wanted me to hit escape. All right, so we're going to click to add. And before we can type the name of the field, the computer wants to know what kind of field we're going to be adding. Well, I was going to start with the title of the book. And most of what we're going to be doing are actually short text. Short text is a very flexible field. There are some others that you are going to use from time to time, like number or currency, date and time. I like short field. I'm going to be using that for most of what we do. And then once you do that, it gives you an area to type in what we would like our field to be called. So I'm going to type book title here. Next, I'm going to type author. Again, I'm going to make that a short text. Now, if you want to be able to sort this by author's last name, you may want to separate first names and last names or do last name, comma, first. That's up to you how you want to do that. And then finally, I'm going to do the year that it won the award. Now, you may be tempted to do this as a date. I find that that's a little less flexible. It wants a date and a day, a month, and a year. You could do you could do number for year, which would be a little more flexible for numbers. These categories are not the least bit tolerant of things that don't comply. Like if you do a number field, it won't tolerate any letters or punctuation. They just need to be pure numbers, but the year will work for that. All right, so once you have your fields typed, you are ready to begin with your data entry. You can click on the field. I need to enter that in first, so let's enter that in. Or you can hit the tab key to move from field to field. So I'm not going to do these in any particular order. Um, that's one I enjoy a lot. And I'm just simply going to type these in. I'm going to do these last name first so I can alphabetize it later by author if I decide I need to do that. I won the award in the year 2000. Again, you can tab to go from field to field. Notice that on the ID field, it gave that a number 1. Like I said, do not adjust that. Just let that be. Okay, so I filled in some more data. I added a few more records. Each one of these books is considered a record in our database. And now our table has been rounded out with a number of entries. You can have as many entries as you need. These databases are designed to hold quite a lot of information. Now it's time for us to save and name our table. Right now our table is titled Table 1, which isn't very helpful. So you can save it and give it a title, or if you attempted to close or save your document, it would prompt you to save this table. So let's go ahead and go to File, Save, and it's going to ask us to do that. Save. And sure enough, it's asking us to save our table. Now, as we name our Access objects, it's recommended not only that you give it a meaningful name, but you give it a name that also identifies what type of object it is, and this is a table. Now, the technique that I use, and there are a couple of different techniques I've seen, is to end with a capital T to stand for table, or a capital R for report, or a Q for query, and so on. So this is a table about Newbery books. So I'm going to put Newbery Award winners, and then I'm going to have a capital T at the end, and that T stands for table. Notice when I save it, not only does the name appear here on the tab, it also appears here on the side that shows that this is my first object in my database. As we continue, we'll add more objects later, and we'll add more data to the existing table.